all of that is a way of saying that there are ways that we can find out who we are by pushing limits, by going a little bit further, by being willing to fail, which will also, by the way, give you a confidence that when you do, you also have the capacity to recover from a failure. Failures don't have to be catastrophic. There are some that are catastrophic. If you jump off the Coronado Bridge, you will fail to fly, and that will be catastrophic. That's an extreme, dude. There are a whole bunch of small things that are in there. Any of you guys, when you were younger, go jumping out of a tree? Yeah, and you find out what your limits are. You ever hurt yourself falling off the tree? I have, yeah. You ever go on those swings and you swing as far as you can, and when you can get the peak, you jump off the swing to see how far you can go? And you guys remember when you were a little kid and you were flying like 200 feet off the ground? You're convinced. But then you go back when you're older and you go, I was like 10 feet off the ground. You weren't as far as you thought you were, but at the time it seemed so far. Yeah, there'll be things like that in your life where they might, they make you feel like you can never recover from something. This is just too big. But going back to what Joseph said, you lack a perspective. You gain satisfaction from being right or from telling the truth? From being right. Why do we put so much into that? Like, I'm sure some of you are that person, because there's so many of them in the world. There has to be at least one or two in here that you're that person that no matter what, you have to be right. Or you have to think that you're right. Or you have to try to get other people to think that you're right. And I wonder how many arguments that's gotten you into. And I wonder how many arguments you've won like that. You know what I mean? Like, have you ever actually won an argument with a friend? Where at the end of all of it, your friend was just like, wow, you're right. And you pointing out how I'm wrong in every single way and how my thinking is flawed and how my emotions are wrong has really brought us together closer as friends. And has that ever happened to you? Yeah, probably not. But then there's also that tension where, what if you know that you're right? In other words, it's not just an opinion, there's something factual that you know for an absolute fact that you're right about something. And then you back down from it, and then the other person kind of pops up like, yeah, that's right, I proved you wrong. You know they didn't. But then that also causes you to sacrifice something about yourself, too. Because there's something that you know to be true that you've backed away from. How many things in your life that you know to be true are you going to back away from before you feel like you've completely compromised yourself and you get to that point that Reuben and Joseph were talking about, where you don't know yourself anymore because you've backed away from what you know to be the truth, what you know to be true about yourself, what you know to be true about the world, what you know to be true about other people. And that is a hard balance there, man. Like how much, at what point do you dig in your heels and argue about something? And is there like a certain classification of things, like, I don't know, like your ethics, your morals? Are you willing to lose relationships over those? If so, you better know them very well. One of the things that I see a lot of, I'm sure that some of you see this as well, you'll tell somebody the truth about something, or you'll post something and you'll criticize a person, and afterwards you'll leave a happy face after it, or the laughing face. Like, hey, you're wrong about this and you're a real piece of crap, happy face. Or the laughing face. Like somehow that's supposed to soften the blow of what you just said. But if something is true, something is true. And so I guess the question becomes, what is it that you stand on? Because if there's something that you believe in so much, what are those few things? Because there aren't probably very many of them. In other words, are there things that you're willing to lose friendships over? Are there things that you're willing to lose family relationships over? And if there isn't something that you hold on to very deeply, then probably not. But the more things in your life, interestingly enough, the more things in your life that you hold on to really strongly, the more you're going to be a polarizing figure. And the more you're going to push people in your life away. The more people are going to admire you, because we all like truth, but we like truth the same way that we like ice cream, little bits of it. But no one likes it when someone's shoveling it to you by the gallon full. You get sick of it. It hurts you. And so it's easy to admire principled people, but it's difficult to be around them sometimes because they hold on to certain things so strongly. That's one of the reasons that I have students will talk about studying philosophy, and I'll say, don't do it. Don't ever study philosophy. Because if you study philosophy the way that it should be studied, then you're going to take on principles and values, and you're not going to be able to be shaken from them because you're going to think about them so deeply. In other words, you're going to spend so much time reading and thinking and considering and adopting views that you're going to be unshakable from those views. And it'll actually almost be offensive when someone comes along and says something to you against your views, and you know they haven't thought about it for more than 5 minutes, and they're going to feel like their opinion is equally valid to yours. And then they're going to start saying things like, well, you've got your truth, and I've got my truth. It's like, no, I've spent literally hundreds of hours thinking about this issue and coming to a very solid conclusion. You watched a couple of videos, shorts even then, and you've got the same kind of you have this contrary opinion. And I suppose it's true that everyone is allowed to have their opinion, but to suggest that all opinions are valid are to suggest that you would all get on an airplane with me flying it, even though I've never learned how to fly a plane. You have a pilot who has hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of hours in the cockpit, and then you've got me, and my truth is I could fly an airplane. Do any of us really believe that? Then how can we pretend to in so many areas? We pretend like people who have never really given much thought to things have an opinion that's equally valid to people who have. I don't know, it's almost like it's like if it's going to cost us something, then our views change. If it's not going to cost us anything, well, then we can just kind of dismiss it and just pretend like it doesn't matter. But again, I ask that question, how many times in our lives do we have to back away from something that we know to be true before we start to feel like we've compromised some things about ourselves? How many times do you have to lie about yourself before who you actually are is almost impossible to discover? Because you have to unpack a bunch of things. Like if you go into you go into a closet and all the shelves fall on top of you and you're covered with clothing, and you have to imagine if you have to peel everything off one by one. Where do you even start? You can't even reach the outside to start peeling off the layers. If you try pulling from the inside, you're crushed under the weight of the clothing and all the stuff that's fallen on top of you. You might think that maybe you can burst through, but in real life, you can't pull away your issues that way. You have to work through these things that you believe in, and the issues and the things that have traumatized you one by one by one by one by one. And sometimes the pile is so deep you can't reach the outside. So how much stuff has to fall on top of you before you start to lose sight of who you really are, before you finally just stay inside of that piled up shell and just say, this is just who I am. And you accept it rather than being what you could be. Well, how do you get out? Well, sometimes you might have to call for someone. Oh! Maybe someone can come over and help you remove these things one by one until you can actually get to a point of helping yourself. But those things that pile up, I guess I would ask you what those things are. A lot of it is that sense that we just don't believe in ourselves very much. And I can understand why a lot of you don't believe in yourselves. And explain what I mean by that. A lot of us haven't been given a bunch of opportunities to pursue something significant in our lives. We have people hovering over us, making sure that we don't get hurt. We have playgrounds that have rubber floors and mulch, so you never actually find out how far you can swing on those monkey bars. You never find out what you're really capable of or what you're willing to face, because you realize if you fall, there's no actual danger. So how do you learn how to confront danger if our whole lives we've been shielded from danger? How do we know what we're capable of if our whole lives we've been shielded from the consequences of failure? Now, we do say, oh, failure is a good thing. I don't know that that's necessarily the case. But a risk of failure shows us who we actually are. That doesn't mean that from a very early age, you want kids to go running across the freeway because, they can face danger. Because some danger, of course, is just super extreme. But the little bits and pieces of it, because it reveals to you who you are. How do you react when there's danger? How do you react when there's an emergency? If there was if there's an earthquake, let's say, and we had to leave here, and stuff's falling all over the place, are you the person who panics and just freezes? Are you the person who panics and just goes running recklessly? Are you that person who grabs other people and helps them get to where they're going to be? We can imagine who we are, but we don't know who we are until we're in those kinds of scenarios. That's why it's good for everybody to get into a fight at least once in your life. I'm not saying that you should go out today during lunch and just pick a fight with somebody. But if you do, you find the biggest person that you can. But until you get punched in the face, a lot of times you don't know who you are, because you get punched in the face, we think it's the worst thing that can possibly happen. If I get into a fight, I could get killed. And then you get into a fight and you realize, I didn't die. That's good. Is there a danger you could die? Oh yeah. You could fall back, hit your head in the concrete, and die. You could hit somebody, they could fall back, hit their head in the concrete, and they could die. It's a stupid thing to do. But you learn a lot about yourself in those scenarios. You find out wow, I got punched in the face. It's not so bad. And if you're thinking about it, you can start to ask yourself, I wonder what else isn't so bad that I can find out. And you push those limits. That's where you find out where those limits are. And that's where you find out where you are. And you can massage those limits and get further and further and further and expand who you are. And that's how you can grow into something greater than what you presently are. And that's a good thing, because what you are right now, it's absolutely nothing compared to what you could be if you're given the opportunities to grow. But that has to come from a willingness to face a failure. And if you fail, are any of you that ultra competitive asshole where you refuse to lose in anything that you do? Yeah, I'm that guy too. Yesterday I was working with a kid's jiu-jitsu class, and there's this girl, she's 10, and she's trying to beat me. Am I gonna let a 10-year-old beat me? No. There's no damn way. No, I'll pull illegal techniques. I'll pull questionable techniques on a 10-year-old. I don't care. And if that 10-year, because what's gonna happen with that 10-year-old, she's gonna become a 20-year-old, and that 20-year-old she's gonna become a 30-year-old. And if she continues that whole time, there might come a day when she can actually beat me. I have to be able to say, remember when you were 10? But also you can build people with a false confidence. A 10-year-old walks around, I beat you. It's like, oh my God, now what's that 10-year-old gonna do? Now she's gonna go to school and pick on the 6th graders and get her ass kicked because she thinks that she actually beat somebody. So you also have to have a reasonable understanding of your limits, to know what they are so that you can push them a little bit. If you think your limit's here and it's actually here, and you start from this point and try to push it, you're in big trouble. So all of that is a way of saying that there are ways that we can find out who we are by pushing limits, by going a little bit further, by being willing to fail, which will also, by the way, give you a confidence that when you do, you also have the capacity to recover from a failure. Failures don't have to be catastrophic. There are some that are catastrophic. If you jump off the Coronado Bridge, you will fail to fly, and that will be catastrophic. But that's an extreme, dude. There are a whole bunch of small things that are in there. Any of you guys, when you were younger, go jumping out of a tree? Yeah, and you find out what your limits are. You ever hurt yourself falling off a tree? I have, yeah. You ever go on those swings and you swing as far as you can, and when you can get the peak, you jump off the swing to see how far you can go? And you guys remember when you were a little kid and you were flying 200 feet off the ground? You're convinced. But then you go back when you're older and you go, I was 10 feet off the ground. You weren't as far as you thought you were, but at the time it seemed so far. Yeah, there'll be things like that in your life where they might, they make you feel like like you can never recover from something. This is just too big. But going back to what Joseph said, you lack of perspective. That's all it is. We can see in other people. Why can we see in other people? A big part of it is because of a perspective. What does your back look like? You have to go to a mirror to find out, don't you? What does everybody else's back look like? You can see it. Just look around. It's hard to look inside yourself. The same way that if you're standing on top of a mountain. Anybody ever go to Cowles? Go climb Cowles, right? Yeah, we get to the top of Cowles. I'll talk more about this in the third quarter, but you get a very different perspective of San Diego from a high place. There's a reason that most world religions start with a person going up the top of a mountain, hanging out in a cave, looking around from being separated from society, going up to a high place and gaining a perspective of everything around. When you're looking inside yourself, it's hard to do this. And when you're looking at other people, it's easy to. When you're on top of a mountain, it's hard to look at the mountain because you're on top of it. But if you're at the base of the mountain, you can look up at it and you can see everything. And I guess the goal in life is to reach a place of perspective such that all of those tragedies of life don't seem so bad. You understand them for what they were. They were stones and rocks and things on the way up to that high place. Maybe that high place is something that represents what you've overcome. Maybe. Questions? Comments? Concerns? Complaints? Criticisms? Critiques? Happy Tuesday? Yeah.